Hello, thank you very much for watching this video, which is going to be a commented version of Stanley's Parable playthrough. It's going to be a long play, which means that as you can see, I selected a video online which has no commentary apart from whatever is going on within the video game itself. And I'm going to be the very, very loud backseater. Being in the back seat, which is a saying that you can also use in French. As you probably know, if you watch Twitch channels or other YouTubers who are into video games, is a term used to talk about people who are not actively playing, but who comment on whatever is going on screen or in the game. Vous l'avez peut-être déjà rencontré, hein? Pas de backseating ou pas de backseat sur certains streams, si jamais vous regardez des streams en français. The game I'm going to present today is the Stanley Parable, as I already told you. It started off as a mod for Half-Life, which is definitely not a game like the one we're going to be looking at today. Half-Life, as you probably know, is an entirely, I'm not going to be talking about Half-Life. I'm sorry. The Stanley's Parable, or the Stanley Parable, it's not Stanley's, but it's the Stanley Parable, is a walking simulator. It's a game that does not require you to have any perk or any knowledge of anything that is remotely close to skills in video games. It's an interactive drama in the sense that it has you do things. It has you pick, decisions and whatever directions as well, in order to get the story to go further. It plays on a lot of little subgenres with very subtle details. There are a few things I would like you to look at whenever we are going to be in the silent portion. I'm going to be, of course, not talking whenever the game is, in progress, and I'm going to pause during interesting points to show you things. I would like you to pay very close attention to not only the narrator's voice. This game owes a lot to Kevin Briding, the narrator, the British actor that we're going to be hearing all the way through the game, because it's a very verbose game. C'est un jeu très bavard, verbose. But you're going to be also paying attention to how it delivers his lines. If there are pauses, if ever something seems to be a little overwhelming, there are too many colors or too many voices and things like this, I would want you to pay attention to the rest, to whenever things are not that bright, not that verbose. I would like you also to try and envision the longer play, because obviously this is just going to be, you can see that the original video is an hour and a half long. We're not going to go an hour and a half long, and you can probably see it on the screen. But I would like you to try and see how a bigger narrative would be, how the skeleton of everything is. Obviously, you can find that online, and if you're interested, we can talk about it later. But these are the two important elements. This game plays on strangeness. It plays on having a choice or not. It plays on control or not. Because the relationship between your character, the, Stanley character we're embodying, which we never see as well, is very important. Are there anything fate related in the way we act? Are we designed to only push buttons? These are the questions that this game asks. Are we also independent creatures? Is Stanley an independent creature, and can you, the player, fool the narrator? The relationship between you, player, you as Stanley, and whatever is around, the environment is also very important in the way this game is shaped. And I would like you to really pay attention to that. without further ado, I'm going to try and mute my mic as well as I can, and let's begin. Well, in a few seconds, obviously. As you can see, the title screen has a mise en abîme. There's the drosity effect with the screen that you're playing on. And it's, even further distorted because you're looking at my screen, and my screen, I'm looking at my actual computer screen, and we're looking through this screen, through a little screen to another, through another tiny screen. It's a very, apart from, obviously, I just kept this, but it's a very neutral game. The font is not very interesting. Nothing is that great about what it looks like. It's all grays and whites. I want you also to pay close attention to colors. Whenever the colors are not black and white or gray based, because it's an office drama, you're going to be wanting to really get in there and try to see what the color also conveys. Okay, here we go.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-winding, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Okay, I hope this wasn't too much of a hassle. You see how the character is presented. You're not given any agency. You're not given power over him. You just see a blank character. The fact that he is faceless is important as well. We will never see his face throughout this playthrough, and I don't think we ever see his face, really. This introduction plays on, the strange, l'inquiétante étrangeté. Is there something inhuman in Stanley that drives him to do whichever repetitive task is given to do? These are mindless things. This is really a mill crushing people. C'est vraiment l'entreprise dans le pire de l'entreprise, si vous voulez. C'est-à-dire vraiment quelque chose qui vous pousse à faire des actions répétitives, à être déshumanisé. The fact that he has a number and that he just has to push buttons, he doesn't never have to think about whatever he's doing, gives us an impression of claustrophobia as well. We're also given the tiny room in which he's working, and the fact that it's a video game really helps because we can see whatever is happening. We can see that he is enclosed in this box, and since there is nothing around, it's not a map, or rather, it's a modelization of the actual room he's in with the void around him. Il n'y a que le vide et cette petite pièce dans laquelle il est en train de travailler, alors qu'on ne peut pas le voir. This represents the order of nature before the game. And now, there are going to be more interesting things going on.
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845.
Okay, I'm coming back a little bit right now for the first moments where you start playing. You probably heard it. After the very beginning of the game that, drew the general lines of whatever was happening, you're given a place where there's something uncanny going on, quelque chose de bizarre. Hence the music that becomes a little weird, with tentative notes and that kind of things. As you can see, it's a walking simulator, so there's nothing to do, almost nothing to do. And the narrator does follow whatever we're doing, and we're doing whatever the narrator asks us to do. There's a set of doors, and they decide, the player decides to go right or to go whichever direction was expected. There is nothing within the game that you can interact with. Everything is asinine. Tout est vraiment complètement vide. Il n'y a pas de but, il n'y a pas de sens. Les panneaux au mur sont ridicules. Work more, je sais pas quoi. Enfin, vous avez vu dans la salle de réunion, hein, the PowerPoint presentation is probably the most boring thing I've ever seen. And you're given nothing, straws to grasp at. On a vraiment très très peu d'indices sur ce qui est en train de se produire. The one room where things are changing is this office we're in right now, because you can see first, and that's something that horror uses a lot in horror games or horror in general, movies and that kind of things. They use shapes and non-Euclidean geometry. Des dimensions comme ça qui n'existent pas, hein, des choses qui sont trop grandes ou trop petites pour être là où elles sont. Think about superimpositions. Think about horror things where you read about a story from one point of view and actually you know that there is an unreliable narrator. Hein, vous savez, parfois, l'une des choses importantes de l'horreur, c'est le fait que le narrateur, la narratrice ne soit pas fiable. Et la narration fiable ou non fiable, c'est un des gros ressorts de l'horreur. C'est ce qu'on a là, avec ces murs qui sont infinis. I told you to pay close attention to colors, and you see that the office is red. And the walls are way too tall, and the pictures on the wall are very neutral but strange. We were given one code that the narrator described as impossible to know. C'est pas une date de naissance, en plus vous avez vu les chiffres 28 je sais pas quoi, la 2845, c'est une combinaison de touches qu'on ne devrait pas connaître, et normalement dans le jeu, ce n'est pas un narrateur qui vous les donne. Hein. You do know that in these types of things, for instance, survival horror games like Resident Evil that play on discovery of places that are unknown. play on you exploring, the scene. Through books, for instance, Morrowind, Oblivion, all the Skyrim, all the things in the Elder Scrolls series, have you read a lot of material, The Witcher and all that. Do the same thing. Here, you're never given anything to read. You're not given anything to do. You just have to follow. And you're being the backseat of being the backseat of that game, and the narrator backseats the player, and there's this recursive cycle going on. So the interesting point now is to see if the player refuses or not to input the correct combination. I'm not going to interrupt this video. Maybe it's clearer if I tell you when and how I'm going to cut it short. I'm not going to interrupt it before you reach the end this time around. So, see you on the other side.
But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway. Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long. Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content, walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all. Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Okay, I think it's a fitting moment to resume. This is the first ending that we get to see, and there were a lot of things to unpack here. First, there is no emotional attachment. There's no challenge. We can reach this ending, and as you can see, the end is never is the end. Whichever way you want to take it works. There was nothing to do. There's no flesh, no skills to have, and yet there are a lot of things to unpack. First, the fact that the player inputted the correct combination, the 2845. The narrator says, "Oh, that's incredible. That's out of sheer luck. C'est de la chance. C'est de la chance pure que Stanley réussit, etc., etc." Here, if the narrator says that, we have two things that are going on at the same time. First, the suspension of disbelief, la suspension d'incrédulité, is stretched really, really thin. And here we have a make-believe, un semblant. Of course, the narrator gave us the code, and we know it. And the conceptors of the game know it as well. They are they created it so that we will input the correct numbers. And here we also refuse the existence of the player, because if it's sheer luck, either you want to preserve the suspension of disbelief, but obviously the game does not play by normal rules, or you're trying to mock the player. You're trying to mock whichever conventions of video games are important. And that is the essence of the Stanley Parable. You saw everything, the layout of this mind control facility, the office, the very long walkway, l'espèce de passerelle, on which you stood, or the character stood, with the panoptical thing around you, with all the screens, that is too big. I mean, it's a parody of a lot of other games. You see that there is a white robotic light with the mind control facility. You have this little white light that is neon white. And you are given ways to escape all the time. You probably saw it. There were pauses. Obviously, the player, the actual player, the person behind the screen that recorded it, this PC long play, paused several times, and also paused when looking at the escape and the mind control facility, and then the escape again, and maybe I'm gonna just go somewhere else. But they did not select this option. You are given a lot of options, actually, because the game is very exaggerated. Here, it's as if, the player really tried to follow the line until the end. You're also given simplistic elements. The camera button is a huge button on the monitor that allows you to turn on the cameras, and the light button with a light bulb on it allows you to turn on the light. And there's nothing more to it. It's literally whatever is on the tin, it does. C'est comme le port-salut. C'est écrit dessus. Il y a marqué, il y a une ampoule, et ben on appuie, ça allume les ampoules. Enfin, je veux dire, c'est vraiment le niveau zéro exprès du game design, so that you don't have to really think too much about it, and you know that it's a parody. You don't get too vested in it. You don't get too much into the game because it just says it's a game. And you have these voice effects. Brighting really tried to change whatever he was telling. He was being dramatic, overly dramatic, and he was we going to be blind to the world. You see that it is a little bit too much, but there is nothing to, there was nothing at stake. I mean, the game started 9 minutes ago, not the video I'm doing because I'm very talkative, but the game itself started 9 minutes ago, and you want us to believe that he was under mind control, and you want us to care? Obviously you don't, because that's what this game is about. Us not being vested, so that we are, backseating a little bit, and we're able to look at whatever draws, pulls the strings, tout ce qui tire les ficelles des éléments narratifs du jeu vidéo, des histoires en fait. C'est ça l'idée ici. You also have this problem of rhythm, which is really made on purpose because you first have to shut down the machine, and then you have to push the button in order to escape, and then you have to step through the door. These are all discrete choices that you are given that the character or the player rather decided not to follow. But that also distorts the story. You see that it is a little unbalanced, as if to add a little more flesh. But there was nothing going on, and the story is poorly presented. There is no puzzle to solve. It's not as if there were several buttons to push, and then you tried and you succeeded or you failed, and there's nothing that brings you towards this game. Towards the story of Stanley that you just discovered some 10 minutes ago. You see that there was this natural landscape that we saw with like Babylon brooks somewhere and little birds chirping and all that. We had nice colors that were really a counterpoint to the world of the company that the Stanley Parable shows us. And that's an ending that is quite fatalistic, really. C'est une fin un peu fataliste. We're trying to, the narrator tries to draw you towards replaying the game. Stanley did not want power, did not want knowledge. He just wanted to, live his life, and it's the way it should be, and everything's fine, and blah, blah, blah. Actually, the fact that he reminds us at the very end that we still don't know where the coworkers are and all that is a way to tickle our curiosity. To be completely honest with you, full disclosure, I played the game obviously, but after watching this ending, at this point, I had completely forgotten about the coworkers, which were definitely not on my mind when I was taking notes, to prepare for this analysis. Now, the path that is going to open is a little different. He's just going to, well, he's not going to play through the whole thing. It's just going to go through the mind control bit. Once again, I'm going to let you, watch it until the ending. And I hope I can find the proper moment. But once again, bear with me, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control? Oh, Stanley, I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency detonation system. In the event that this machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated? All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go-around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock, why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge, it's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever after.
Okay, that was ending Mind Control. Or so I dub it. I mean, I don't have the proper title for it. You saw that there is this will to control something on the part of Stanley. If the player, the person playing the game, chooses to activate mind control, which is a problem. The game is made to submit you. Il est fait pour soumettre. It's made to show how a character and a narrator can be submitted to one another in a very strange a relationship. Once again, the game hints at elements that were not present before, all these years, as if there was something connivant between the narrator and Stanley, which probably exists, but not with the player and not with us watching someone play this game. The voice actually spoils the end of the game, or spoils something. Because we learn, we already knew it, that it is almighty, that it's all-seeing, it can do whatever. Elle est omnisciente, elle est omnipotente, elle peut rajouter des minutes. The voice can do whatever it wants. It also opens, or at least parts of this video also open on the fact that there exists a multiverse, that this instance of the game looks like that, and that there are going to be others, and that there were others before that we are not aware of, and that it can go on and on forever, or at least for the foreseeable future, really. The only moment that we're given a challenge, really, and I think that it's the only moment where we are given a challenge, is in the form of all the little puzzles that we are given. Obviously, it's just a waste of time. It's impossible to defuse the bomb, and it is going to blow, and but we're given a lot of alors ça va être des fausses pistes. It's going to be a lot of red herrings. It's going to be a lot of duds that we're given. The numbers and the buttons that are, at the top of a flight of stairs, the colors, the shapes, 5 monitors or 4 computers, one after the other, and you press buttons and it says incorrect or correct. That does play on what you know about game design. That does play on what the player knows about game design. Because we still believe players, this was designed in order to have players believe that they could go from one piece of, one problem, one puzzle, one challenge to another challenge, and that this was the actual game. Et effectivement, on pense toujours aller d'énigme en énigme avec une circularité, on apprend quelque chose, on devient meilleur en perdant, etc. But actually, it's not how this is working at all. The bomb is a threat, and it's not a challenge, as he says. It's not a challenge, it's a tragedy, I think he says. And that's exactly whatever is happening, because the narrator is in control, and that's what he's telling you with this ending. And you, as the player, the instance, the person behind the computer, is the player. And once, and I think it's the first time, maybe I'm wrong, but it's the first time the narrator addresses not Stanley, but the player behind the screen, or behind the keyboard. I hope you also paid attention to the music, which was quite interesting as well. I will now let you experience the next ending, which is quite short for once, but still interesting in the challenges it poses, at least, mentally.
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go anywhere except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy. Stanley waited. Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
Okay, this ending is actually a breach in the contract, which is, given, it's an unspoken contract between the player and the game. But it's really a contract between the story and whoever is being told the story. You have to be involved for it to go on. If there is no will to go on the story, well, then it's just going to be nothing. Waiting like this is not something that you expect. And that's the reason why in some video games, as you probably know, some RPGs, the latest games, when your character is idle for too long, when it doesn't move, when they don't move for too long, they start shuffling, they start moving on their own, they look at you. There are hints that show you that there is movement expected somewhere sooner than later. And that's an important thing. So here, this breach of trust, this breach of the contract is solved fairly easily by the narrator, who just says, okay, I'm going to do something to force you into action or not. The path we're going to see right now is a variation of that one. What if you decide to do something which is not expected? And that's a very good question. This is, by the way, something that game designers see whenever they test their games. When you're an alpha or beta tester, you are also given the opportunity to try and create game-breaking bugs, because if you do that before the actual release, means that the game is going to be released without that problem. It's in itself, it's always going to be better because there is someone who is going to try and find the little thing to break the game. Here, this variation plays on the I'm not going to do the expected at all, and we'll see what it has the narrator do.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there. Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here. It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice or anything in here, right? If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever. I never would have thought to mention it. Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path. Maybe when you go talk about this with your friends, you'll say, "Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is. That or with drug money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers. Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. He or she has fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place at the computer, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway. Ah, second player. It's good to have you on board. I guarantee you can't do any worse than the person who came before you. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Okay, I left the ending for, until it ran its course. As you can see, there are two little phases here. First, I'm going to talk about the broom closet thing. Then I'm going to talk about the ending that we just saw. And I'm afraid that's all that we have, all the time we have for this video game. The broom closet is a variant of Wait, of the ending we had just before. The voice tried to manipulate you into moving, said there's something around the corner, get ready and all. But if you go into the broom closet, the voice becomes nagging. There are a lot of things that going on. Like it's insulting. It tells you that you're unworthy. It tells you that you're trying to prove your friends that you got the broom closet ending. And then it talks to not the player, because obviously, it was the player that was addressed first. Did you get the broom closet ending? But it also talks to whoever is behind the player and addresses them. I have played a few video games, and I do not think I've seen that in many of them. Not a direct address to the player, but to whoever is in the room with the player. Obviously, there are games that play on this, that allude to you doing things that you're actually not doing, that pretend to be sending messages on your behalf to friends and that kind of things, like Pony Island, for instance. But here, this is not the expectation, and the voice, the narrator talks to Stanley, to you talking to your friends about the game, to second player, and second player is the one completing this run, and second player continues the game. As you can see, it was very brief. The path that was selected was but a moment. Instead of going up to the boss's office, you just go down and you enter a loop. This loop alludes to whatever we saw at the very beginning, the uncanniness of this game, l'étrangeté du jeu, the fact that it's a mind crushing, a soul crushing thing, really. On fait des choses qui sont complètement répétitives. Et Stanley, il est dans une narration où il est lui-même en train de appuyer sur des boutons et rien faire de très intéressant. And this repeatedness, the fact that you repeat things over and over again, go with whatever the game is showing you, and the fact that you're going through the parking lot and then this hallway with the like the drinks machine, whatever, and then you go back and it's just a circle and you're going in circle. The game also, and once again, it's a play on this make-believe that we had, on the suspension of disbelief. That whenever you're playing a video game, if you lower your head, if you lower the head, the camera in first person view, you're not going to be able to see the body. And that's a given. That's just a convention that is followed. But here, the game tells you that it's abnormal and that you're crazy, basically. Obviously, everything is also created to have us believe things, and here I told you before that the first ending with the mind control button, and then you press it and then you wait for the iron curtain to go down, it's very long and so on. It's poorly constructed, it's poorly timed on purpose. But here everything is masterfully timed to have you believe, once again, it's a roller coaster of emotions. In the first case, it was really okay, I'm done with this. Oh, actually, no, wait. Okay, I'm done with this game. And here it's exactly the same thing. He is dreaming. You were not expecting that to happen. You were not expecting these sentences when, we're exploring, we're floating in the air, or so the voice says. But, when it fades to black, and when Stanley, or the narrator, says that Stanley is repeating a mantra, I'm okay, I'm all right, and all that, you expect it to be done. And it is not. The repetition is weird, and once again, it plays on you being trapped somewhere, on the game, making you whatever he wants to make you, and you always wake up at the same place, and you still do wake up, at the same place, and the voice is still guiding you. That's why everything has to end, really. As you probably saw, the ending goes a little too far. you're repeating things. The voice tells you how repetitive the things that you're already repeating are, which, enhances this feeling. And then you pretend you're sleeping and you're in a pretend dream, and then you're in a pretend panic. You try to calm down, and then there's this panic with the red veil on the eyes of, on the camera, really, until everything stops. And everything stops to Mariella. And you can see that Mariella's story starts exactly the same way as Stanley's. This is the story of Mariella. And she sees his body, blah, 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 laying on the curb. Once again, no face. This is a feature of first person elements as well. You expect to get to see the face of the player, of the character, and you never do. You see that she herself is not a really humane person. Humane dans le sens pleine de compassion, avec ce genre de choses-là. C'est pas la même chose que human. Humane, il y a un E à la fin, en fait. And she also has a variant of Stanley's mantra, of whatever he's saying, I'm okay, I know how I'm doing, and all that. I don't remember properly what the words were, but you get the gist of the story. Here, I really paid attention to when I was going to unpause to show you how the longer bits between the runs influence what we expect. There's a fade to black, but as long as you don't see the never is the end, or the end is never, or whichever way you want to read it, until you read this, you know that you can be disappointed, or that you can have something that is unexpected. We're going to stop here with all the mechanics of this game. That it does play very cleverly on the expected. Another game that I would advise you to also play in order to get the feeling of what behind the scene is. I could give you a list of these games. The creators of Stanley's Parable have also created other games, which I advise you to go and see. But yeah, I would tell you to continue playing this video. The next ending has the person who plays pick the doors to the right. So disobey the narrator fairly early in the game, until they want to do something completely different. I advise you to watch everything, keeping in mind the little Reader's Digest I just gave you, the little tidbits of information. You have to be on the lookout for circularity. You have to be on the lookout for the relationship between diegetic, the way the narrator and the character interact. That's very important. You have to be on the lookout for sound effects, voices, music, the way the image is made, the way the very mundane, des éléments de tous les jours, flowers and whatever, binders, folders, very boring elements of everyday are used. That is also a key to understand how this game design mocks, parodies whatever was made before. Keep in mind that it's an older game. It was released at least on Steam. It started off in 2011, but it was released in 2013. If you're interested, there is another release of the game, which should be happening very soon, or rather in 2021. But we'll see. I guess very, very end of 2021, maybe 2022, depending on whatever has been happening. I would advise you to buy the game if you are so inclined. It does not require you, as you can see, to master anything. It is €12 in it costs €12 on the Steam uh, um, well platform, but you can probably get it for less during the sales. I hope you enjoyed this content, and I am eagerly waiting for your comments whenever I see you in class or in the comments of the video. Thank you very much for watching.